No,
Hmm.
the broadcast is live.
We're live.
We are live.
Good morning, John.
Good morning, Jeremiah. And it is a
Yeah,
good morning.
it is. It's a good morning. It's a beautiful morning.
Yeah.
It's starting to feel like summer. Didn't it feel like the
Yes.
mornings are warmer than normal all of a sudden?
Yeah. And I think going into the weekend here, it's going to get warmer and warmer. The water is warming up too.
Oh,
So,
oh, oh, did you go in? Did you feel a difference?
yesterday I went in for a little bit and that was fun. And it's
Nice.
warmed up at least 2 or 3 degrees.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. Well, you're talking to I mean, even though I used to live up in the Northwest, up in Oregon, you're talking to someone that's soft as heck.
hmm.
Now I wear a wetsuit year round.
Oh, do you?
Even well, okay, you know when we have those occasional currents that'll come in and it
Yeah.
will legitimately feel like Hawaii,
Yeah.
I mean, it gets into the high 70s, almost 80 degrees.
Right.
That's fun to just trunk it and
Yeah.
and just enjoy it. But
Yeah.
the combination of even like slightly chilly mornings surfing, or the fact that I've just gotten burned way too many times, and I've been rolling the skin cancer dice, too long.
The dice
I
move.
just,
Yeah.
yeah. I like to coat my body with neoprene.
That, you know
Yeah,
what? I hear that's better than sunscreen.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So, gosh, we got into social talk, and we forgot we were live.
yeah. We are. We're live.
Let's jump into it. I think this is probably the whopper right here. I mean, it's been in the news. It's been everywhere. I'll put a link in the feed here. This is directly from Freddie Mac, and it's not even as much an article. It's just saying, "Hey, listen,
Right.
this is where we're at." And here I'm just kind of posting this on our feed here. And I can even share. You know what? I'm going to share the screen
Okay.
so you
Yeah,
can
that'd be good to.
see what I'm talking about here, because this is. I think this is probably the most.
There we go.
This is what everyone's watching,
Yeah,
and it's this graph right here. I mean, this is over the last year. Can you see that on the screen?
we
Yeah.
can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I said we. It's me.
Yes.
My dog's outside. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. But I mean, look at this. I mean, talk about a spike.
Right.
I mean, we had that little jump at the beginning of the year in January and February where it started to go up into the high threes. But then in the last couple of months, especially in the last 30 days, I
Right.
mean, this is wild. Look,
Yeah.
we're almost up at, on average in the US at, getting close to almost 5.5%.
Right. And I think the article mentioned that for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, this is the highest we've seen
Yeah.
since 2009.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, there it is right there. So yeah, I mean, this is going to impact clearly the purchasing power of buyers, and specifically those folks that have kind of been on the fence for a while or have been trying to purchase maybe their first home and they haven't been successful for whatever reason so far. Um, for a lot of folks, that's it. That knocks them out of contention. Or what they're doing is they now need to take a look at other locations or other types of properties. Like maybe they were shopping for a detached home, and now they may have to shop for a condo
Yeah.
or a townhome. So it's definitely in a big adjustment for folks. And I think and Jeremiah, you can give me your thoughts on this too, but I really do feel that it's the first time home buyers that are just going to get knocked over the head with these rates, right? Because many of them are stretching already to
Yeah.
try and make that happen. And now with this rate increase, I don't care if you've been saving another couple $100 or $1,000 a month. look at what you're now able to purchase, and look at what your monthly payment is going to be.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, we've talked about not only have folks been stretching and at the top of their budget, but they've also had to anticipate, okay, if this is how much I can afford, then I need to be looking at properties because I know it's going to get bid up, right? It's going to go
Right.
over asking. So I have to strategically look at these properties that are slightly under what I can afford so I can handle that bid up. And then you tack on this, and I mean, some people don't realize how much even a quarter point has an effect on,
Yeah, and I,
on
I think what makes it real is when you start to look at these numbers, and our next article gave a couple examples there too. Um, but yeah, I mean the rates jumping like that. I mean, obviously inflation is here,
Mhm.
um, and the Fed needs to do something to combat that. And so this is one way to do it. Now, if the interest rates are raised too much too quickly, um, then the housing market could adjust, and that's what they want. But you also have to take a look at supply and demand, and then each state in our country, each neighborhood is also unique, and there's different
Mhm.
reasons why people might want to move to that neighborhood or not. And some of our, I think it's our other article talked about that
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well. But getting back to these rates, uh, it plays a huge role in our housing market. And if someone has been on the fence for a while, specifically as a first time home buyer, what they know they can anticipate is for rates to continue to increase. And then they know that they can also anticipate their rent is likely going to increase as well the
Yeah.
next time that they go to renew their lease, if they get that opportunity. If not, talking to many people, even my wife's coworker right now was asking her if she knew of anything because her landlord's going to sell the house.
Mhm.
So that's a very common story right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
um yeah.
Well, and it's I completely agree with you when you say that this isn't going to change. If you go back to the map in itself, you can see the spiking, but we
Right.
don't see any type of leveling off. At least, I mean, every
Yeah.
Thursday, Freddie Mac puts these data points out, from their national surveys, and you're not seeing any hint that it's going to level off, nor are you hearing that in the news either.
Right.
Um, so if this is going to continue, I do agree. They have this little blip right here that says house price growth will continue, but expected to decelerate in the coming months. And that's exactly what I agree with. I think that we're not going to see prices drop at all. And this is a perfect segue that we can start to talk about the next
Yeah,
article in just a second. But we're just going to see it's just going to decelerate what's happening and the extreme jumps in prices. So
that's
um,
right. That's right.
why don't we pop over to that next one here? I'm trying to
Yeah.
boom. Okay, there's our next title right there.
Boom. There it is.
and
All
and Jeremiah needs to figure out how to stop sharing the other one. Look at that.
right. You got it. Yeah.
um, so our next article is from Fortune, the Fortune website. The odds of a home price decline hitting your local housing market, as told by this chart. And again, this is where I just picture speak a thousand words. I mean,
Yeah.
like this is wild stuff. But I think the fact that it's visual, it just makes so much sense. Or so much easier to show here. So on this one,
Yeah, that's a great chart right there. Let's see. All right, so the odds of regional home prices
yeah,
dropping
there we go. Yeah,
over the coming year.
exactly. Okay, I think that's in frame now, right?
There
Okay.
we go. Yeah.
Um, And what's cool too is like if we hover down here where we're at in the San Diego Carlsbad area, it's actually highlighting individual, you know, large, large, metro areas.
I
So
didn't pick up on that before. Yeah, nice.
yeah, yeah, it's kind of cool. So, and more importantly, especially over on the East Coast, they have so many of these different areas that they're fairly small. But it's wild to me how on the East Coast there's areas where it can say very low right outside of Philadelphia, the Camden
Uh-huh.
area, and then right next door in a little pocket of Atlantic City, it's starting to spike a little more.
Right.
So. And then just taking a peek around at some of these areas that you know up in Washington, the state of Washington, over in Salem, up in Oregon, places that they just feel there's a significant elevated area where prices could see some adjustments.
Right.
The other chart that, well, here, did you want to say anything else about this one? Because it was the other one that I thought was really interesting too.
Well, I thought that this was pretty interesting, just in general, to kind of paint a picture like this and give everybody that perspective.
Hmm.
And clearly, they have facts to back this up. But it's nice to be able to see all of this on one page because essentially it reflects, to a certain extent, migration patterns
Hmm. That's a good point.
um, of people. So, where are people going? I mean, so when you have the, very low and low areas there, then that means people are either staying or they're coming in, and or they're coming in at a higher rate than people are leaving. Um,
Hmm.
and those home prices, of course, reflect higher sales prices. So again, inventory is down and demand is up in these areas where you've got very low and low in terms of home prices dropping. So
Yeah. Um, Check this other one out here. This is, can you see that right there? Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, cool. Um, and I thought this one was interesting because I wish you could overlap them, right? Because
yeah,
we're seeing areas where you've seen the most price increases, and and then I wish I could overlap it with also where they're looking at their odds with their data to combine that, because I think
yeah.
that would like truly show the most vulnerable areas. But
Hmm.
I you know it's crazy because obviously we always look at our market here, and they have San Diego overvalued. They have parts of LA overvalued. Um, I was kind of, it goes back to another article we talked about where the Bay Areas actually had a slight decline in their prices,
Right.
and to me that's I just kind of find that fascinating because there were so many people that were leaving the Bay Area, but then now a lot of people have been able to be called back into work. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Those folks that were leaving the Bay Area a year ago, 2 years ago, and had a home to sell. Clearly, they capitalized on that, took their equity, and many of them purchased down here, actually, where we're at, Jeremiah. And that's part of the reason why, our maybe that's part of the reason why our prices here are quote unquote overvalued.
mhm.
But I think you also have to take a look at the quality of life, the lifestyle that people enjoy in these different locations. And San Diego, in particular, has one of the nicest climates, arguably in the world. And then access to the ocean, the desert, the mountains, all sorts of natural resources here that we can tap into. Um, and so, okay, call it overvalued, but it again, it goes back to supply and demand. So,
I yeah, I'm also wondering, fast forward into the future a couple years
uh-huh.
with people that have left areas, like people that have left California,
Yeah,
or people that have migrated over to Idaho or
right.
over to Texas. Fast forwarding a couple years from now, not necessarily that they were called back to come to work and they had to move back to California,
Hmm.
but these people, where are they enjoying living? And I'm wondering if we're not going to have some sort of, um, I guess flood is the wrong word, but if we're not going to have some people that are just being like, hey, listen, after I've been there, after I've, either enjoyed or not enjoyed,
Yeah.
4 seasons, it was a little too intense. It's not exactly what I thought it was going to be. I'm wondering if we're not going to see those people also coming back because, like you stated, it there's a reason that there's a draw to live in certain areas. When you're coming from a cold environment or when you're
Right.
coming from a scorching hot environment.
Right.
I don't know. I don't have that answer, but I'm wondering how that's going to play out and kind of either justify overvalued cities and towns and states, or is it going to prove it wrong that no, there is value there because as
Yeah.
soon as someone leaves, 2 more people are coming in.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So we'll see. We'll see.
We'll see. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the article also touched on going back to the rates. It gave an example of what you could afford, what the dollar amount is, I should say. So let's say a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. There, the article says that they quote 5.11% for a 30-year fixed, up
Mhm.
from 3.11% in December 2021.
Yeah. And,
So
isn't it? This article is only, I think, about a week old,
yeah, yeah,
and that's
and
how much rates have already changed.
exactly. But in this example, they're taking $500,000 a mortgage
Mhm.
at 3.11%, and they said that equates to $2,138 a month for the mortgage.
Mhm.
Then they take the same $500,000 mortgage at 5.11% in this example, and it equates to $2,718 a month.
Mhm.
So, you're looking at roughly another $600 a month. And for many people, that's, you get to that point and it's kind of like a make or break
Yeah.
because there's a lot of other expenses to incur as well. Um,
And that
so
and that's just on the
that's
500,000.
500,000. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you look at an area like our market here in San Diego, where an average home is closer to 1 million,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden, for a family or for an individual, $1,200 more a month is significant.
Yeah. Yeah. We're due to have our home dex numbers come out here anytime, you
Yeah.
know.
I don't
And
know. I don't know why they don't have a specific date they come out. I
me
Hey,
neither.
don't you kind of find
Yeah.
that odd? And now, for those that are listening to this, Homedex, it's a data company that analyzes and then takes all the data, compiles it together, but they introduce it and send it out to all of our industry so we can
Right.
track what's going on here in San Diego and each different city, each different area in our county. But
Yeah.
sometimes they'll deliver it to us on the 5th of the month and sometimes on the 25th of the month.
Right.
And
Yeah. Right.
is
Well,
someone lazy over at Homedex?
maybe, maybe. But to your point, Jeremiah, we're talking about this example here was $500,000. Now,
Mhm.
maybe for the big scope of the United States, that makes sense. But definitely where we're at here, looking at the prices here for across all zip codes in North County, San Diego, a couple months ago, our average sales price for a single family detached home was hovering around 1,459,000, right around there.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, so 3 times this amount. So when
Mhm.
you talk about those rates increasing, that's real money. I mean, that's a big impact on what people can afford. Um, even at the $1 million mark, right? Even, taking this number and multiplying that out by two.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, That's serious, and that's what the Fed wants, right? I mean, again, they want to curb inflation. This is one way to do that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Well, I think they kind of took their time, and then now they're trying to play catch up,
yep,
and I feel like it could create a bit of a shit show, in my opinion. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Because
and very well might.
it's just too extreme. It's too extreme. Um, I don't think we should see. I don't think we should see half a point changes. Every other week,
Right,
essentially.
right.
Um, this probably
Yeah,
should have started about a year ago, so it would have probably curbed a lot of, or it would have curbed part of this craziness of the
it
market.
would have. It would have. And these consistent rate increases, they actually tie into that third article that we have too, which talks about basically how do you get the edge on the competition.
Yeah, yeah,
What are the aspects of an offer that will get you noticed and allow you to win? It's not even necessarily buying the house right out of the gates. It's beating the competition. It's
yeah,
winning that competition and then going back and buying the house.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Absolutely. Here, let me just put the header out there so people
yeah,
know what we're talking about. This is from Market Watch. The title of the article is "It Can Provide a Significant Strategic Advantage in Today's Ultra Competitive Housing Market." And then a bunch of real estate pros kind of like dished out kind of what you're talking about, John, about what are these strategies, what do they use to get there.
right.
And then I just posted a link there. But yeah, I mean, go ahead. I'll pick up where you left off about
Yeah.
rates.
Well, I was just saying, so this article rattles off 7 different components that they focus on here on how to separate yourself from the competition. But the reason why this kind of went off in my mind here a moment ago is because it talks about the pre-approval letter from a lender.
Mhm.
And right now, in particular, if you do have financing that you're leveraging to purchase a home, it's really, really important that you are up to date with that lender on your pre approval because the rates consistently change. At least they have been changing, and they're not going down, they're going up. So that's one of the things on when you're a listing agent that you're looking for is this, you talk to the lender and when was the last time that they had all their documents uploaded and are they really locked in? Can we lock them in at X rate? What does that look like? Because their purchasing power over time right now at the moment is only going down as these rates go up. So that's really a critical component of all of this. And that's why number one in this article, they're saying one way to separate yourself. Number one here is to show the sellers the money, right? Show me
Mhm.
the money, right? Jerry
Mhm.
Maguire.
Mhm.
And so that's not only purchase price, but it's also how much skin do you have in the game?
Yeah.
Now, what I mean by that is earnest money deposit or initial deposit normally is somewhere between 1 and 3% of the overall purchase price. But if you come to the table with an offer and your initial deposit is somewhere in the order of 10, 15, 20% as an initial deposit, you're saying to those sellers that, hey, I'm not messing around. I'm serious. I want to buy this house
Yeah.
because you're putting more skin in the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so that's something to think about, um, you know, uh, as well on the buy side. And there's a lot more details associated with that, but
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
I wanted to touch upon two things. I want to reiterate that you nailed it on the head with the pre-approval letter, because from not only aspect of when we're representing a seller and we're scrutinizing, these offers, these
yeah,
from these buyers, to see the date of these letters. But I know from working with some of my buyers, uh, you don't always get your first offer accepted, right?
right, right,
And I don't, and buyers don't understand. Yes, you got your pre-approval letter, but that was 3 months ago.
yeah,
And not only for the sake of understanding your buying power and understanding your budget for purposes, but also showing the seller that you're up to date on being qualified.
right, Right.
is a huge deal. And yes, a couple of years ago, a pre-approval letter, even though the lender says it's good, it's just a prequel.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, the rates are no longer even in the threes; they're in the fives. You need to get an updated pre-approval so you have an idea what's going on. So I thought that was a great point.
Yeah.
To go back to what you were saying, yeah, show me the money. Um, I tell my buyers, John, as much as we can show is we're putting it all down.
Yeah.
I remember before the pandemic, before everything was absolutely bananas, I had FHA buyers, and that's the 3.5% loan. Um, and they would say, well, how much should we put in earnest money? And I said, put the max you can.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be going towards the home anyways. This is
Right.
just earnest money while we do our due diligence.
Yeah.
But it's you put everything you have accessible down,
Yeah.
because you and I both know that if my buyer isn't the cash buyer, there's more likely than not going to be another buyer that's competing against us that's going to be a cash buyer. So
That's right.
you
That's
know
right.
you have to do everything you can. Let's see. Another thing they said, well, yeah, I thought this was a good point, and then sometimes I forget that the consumer doesn't think about that. Sellers and listing agents, just like I'm sure you do too, John, you kind of pile up all the offers right next to one another, even
Yeah.
on a spreadsheet, and kind of go, this is everything going on. You're trying to get as much of an apples and apples comparison as possible.
Right.
So when you can do things that set you apart from others, whether it's longer escrows, shorter escrows, rent back, offering things to the seller as far as that rent back, or even free rent back when it's
Right.
possible. Little things make a huge difference when it's helping the seller, and it may not even be monetary.
Right.
Um,
Exactly right. Yeah. So when just kind of going through this list here, to your point, Jeremiah, it may not be monetary. Sometimes sellers, if they can, they want to form some sort of a connection with the buyers, or they want the buyers to have some sort of tie-in to the house.
mhm,
and and so this is actually this just recently how happened to me, where there was a property that had a pretty spectacular backyard that was all landscaped with old growth fruit trees and nut trees, and really a special property. Well, these particular buyers, they loved it. They gravitated towards the backyard. I got to talking with them, and it turns out that it reminds them of their grandparents and the land that their grandparents had. And they wanted to know all about the trees and the fruit and how do we maintain this. And so they're totally bought into it. And it just so happens that those are the buyers for this house now. So there's more to the story than just the price point. And right now, folks buyers are in this position where they have to make a decision almost immediately.
mhm,
If a house hits the market and it's priced right and it's in a great location, the buyers really don't have a lot of time to deliberate over whether or not to put an offer on the house.
mhm,
So they need to be decisive. And my advice is always, when I'm working with buyers, to put their best foot forward right out of the gates, because right now you may not get a second chance. You may not be countered.
yeah,
So to your point, when you're looking at, as a listing agent, a spreadsheet, and you've identified all the different variables on that, with these offers, and you're plugging in the contingency time periods and how close, when can we close escrow? What are some side notes on, is there a free rent back? All of these things are distilled down into a spreadsheet so that you can, to your point, Jeremiah, get that apples to apples comparison between the offers. And I'm surprised sometimes, because sometimes it's not the price
yeah,
that gets the deal done. There might be something else like a free rent back that's extended, or just the fact that the sellers really felt like they connected with this couple that came into their house, and they went with them.
Yeah.
Um, that sort of thing happens. So
Yeah, and you didn't even, we haven't even talked about removing
yeah,
contingencies.
right,
Creating anything that's going to entice or make the seller feel better about the process.
right.
Um, but I just, yeah, there's something about when especially when you're, when John, when you or I are representing the sellers and we're able to gather from a buyer or from a buyer's agent that there is that special connection.
Hmm.
To me, that provides even more value beyond just, okay, well, picking them for the price, but
Right.
there's more reason that someone is going to stay with the deal and the deal's going to get closed. So
Exactly.
it,
Exactly.
it, it provides a ton. To me, that's even more value because you can have a cash buyer that says, hey,
Yep.
I'll pay, 20% over the asking, but then they find a better deal a couple days later and the transaction gets canceled. You
That's
know,
right.
I
Yeah,
mean,
and so to your point there, that I think that's what the better listing agents do, is they
mhm,
try to figure out what the connection is for the prospective buyers to the property.
yeah.
Do they have family that lives in the neighborhood or friends? Do they have kids and they want those kids to go to school that's right down the street? What is that hook, that connection? And
Yeah.
that's way more important, because in my mind that means that they're going to see this through when something comes up. And in a real estate transaction, inevitably things come up,
What do
right?
you mean? You mean
Yeah.
there's complications, there's hurdles?
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
So
no. Yeah, and so if there's attachment, if there's value beyond the dollar, right? That's what you're
mhm.
talking about. If
Yeah.
if there's that unique value to that home, um, it well, I think it saves deals because you can see
Absolutely.
that yes, these people really want to be here. And at the end of the day, I think it makes sellers feel even better because I've
Yep.
had clients and they just go, I'm so happy that this person, even if we had issues and we had to handle
Yeah.
some hurdles that came along, they were still happy that these individuals were buying because they valued the home itself. They
Right.
valued the neighborhood. They valued the area, and they were excited um, for these new buyers to kind of continue the history of the home.
That's
So
right. Yeah, and oftentimes, the people that we're representing, if we're, listing their home, they have close ties to the neighborhood, and they
mhm,
know a lot of the neighbors.
yeah,
And so they feel a sense of responsibility of passing the home on to somebody who is going to take care of it, who's going to be a good neighbor to their friends.
mhm.
And I've even had neighbors come up to me and say, "John, don't you sell this to an investor.
Yes,
Don't you do that.
I
I
know.
want this to be a family, or, somebody who's going to be an integral part of our community here in this neighborhood."
Yeah, yeah,
And of course, Jeremiah and I, just for the two people that are listening to this, Jeremiah and I we cannot make the decision for our clients on who they sell their home to,
yeah,
right? But we can definitely field these concerns from the neighbors, and pass that along, of course, to our clients. But
yeah.
I think at the end of the day, right now, um, there's a lot of buyers that are walking around looking at properties. The buyers are disgruntled that they've lost out on numerous homes at this point. They're fatigued, and what I've noticed is that a lot of them aren't going with their agents to look at homes. They're just out and about, they're taking a look at things, and if it strikes their fancy, then yeah, they'll write up an offer. Well,
Mhm,
something else to note here that I don't think was brought up in this, unless I missed it, was, as the listing agent, I would want to make sure that the buyer's agent sees the house.
Mhm.
I don't want a buyer's agent to just draft up an offer because their client said they liked it and the agent hasn't seen the home. So that's something just for everybody who's listening to this again, super important for your agent, your representation to take a look at the property and to give you their 2 cents on the neighborhood, on the home, tell you what they know about it.
Yeah.
But it's,
I completely agree, and I think that's huge. And I'll take it a step further.
yeah.
I think that when I represent my clients as their agent, the buyer's agent,
Mhm.
I'm able to even get more information, not only from the seller's agent and even the seller sometimes,
Yeah.
but I'm able to advocate for my buyer before we even make the offer.
Right.
I mean, you can literally get ahead of the game, and this isn't cheesy. Oh, I'm
Oh,
going to trick. I'm going to trick the sellers into picking us. But it's listen. I can because there's been so many changes with the love letters and the writing the letters and different things that you can or cannot be presented. But
right.
the one loophole that I see is that as a buyer's agent, we can have unlimited dialogue with sellers agents and let them know how intrigued, how committed we are because of these three reasons, because of these two reasons, because
Right.
of what they saw in the backyard, because of the neighborhood. And we can really advocate for our client and sell them on our buyer no matter what the terms of the offer are. You
Yep.
know, that the listing agent wants our buyer to get the property, not because they're doing us a solid, but it's because they go, this buyer is the one that will follow through, that will,
That's right.
that,
Yeah.
that will make it happen. So I think it's completely downplayed. It's a lot more work, but that's what wins a deal. And you're right. They didn't talk about this in that article at all.
Yeah.
Maybe because I think you and I both know a lot of agents don't do that.
Yeah, a lot of them don't, and I think there's definitely a push right now to go more and more towards technology
Yeah.
and take the personal touch out of it, and to quote unquote save buyers money.
Mhm.
But what all of that fails to take into account is the human element of all of this, which not only it can win you a deal, but then also when you have an agent who really knows what they're doing, the agents are the ones that actually bring the deal together and see the deal through to the end.
Yeah.
And you want a skilled agent on each side of the deal, not so that they can coerce their buyer or seller into doing something, but so that they can properly articulate and communicate exactly what's going on and put themselves on both side of the fence, so to speak.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you can come to an agreement. I mean, it is truly a team effort, between you and your seller, you and your buyer, and then having a collaboration coming together.
Yeah.
And that's what takes skill. And that's what most real estate professionals and sales professionals in general do not do. That's
Mhm.
what takes talent. And so, quite frankly, that's why the realtors who do really well, they should they
Yeah.
should get paid what they get paid because they're skilled at what they do.
Yep.
And I think that we've been on a really good run in terms of our housing prices, our interest rates. The housing market has been hot, but that there are going to be some changes, and the people who are good at what they do and put the needs of their clients first, those are going to be the folks that ultimately end up winning out. And there's
Yeah.
going to be a lot of people that leave the real estate industry
Yeah.
over the next year or two.
Well, I know we didn't intentionally segue away
Yeah,
from this
sorry.
topic a little bit, but I just no, I say that because I think this is so important. I sometimes joke. People say, "Hey, Jeremiah, how's the market?" Oh, it must be incredible. I go, you know what? I kind of like not a down market, but I prefer a neutral market
Yeah,
because there's more professionals in a neutral
that's right.
market. Yeah, of our, there's other peers that you and I work with, whether it's on the listing side or on the buy side, and you're dealing with more professionals that do this for a living, rather than, I mean, I'll tell you, the hardest time I have in getting my buyers to win a property is when the listing agent has never sold a home before,
Yeah.
because they're just so overwhelmed with the process that they're not even helping their client figure out who the best buyer is.
Right.
And on the flip side, it's just as bad when my seller will say, well, this is by far the best buyer, and the agent hasn't even had them sign every page of the offer. I mean, when I see people that they can have all the best intentions,
Mhm.
but that's why we have lawsuits in our, so many lawsuits in our state,
Yeah.
because people just hire their buddy or their brother, and
Right.
they don't really know what they're doing, because it's not even their full-time job.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they're making mistakes, and then people are tossing around lawsuits after the fact because they weren't represented correctly. So
Right.
I don't know, I'm going off on a vent session, so.
No. No. I mean, I think we've both been there, where there's certain deals we've done where we're doing truly both sides of the transaction.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And I feel bad for the consumer that I'm actually not representing, because I feel like it's not doing them justice.
yeah.
And at the end of the day, I'm not in an industry to see, okay, well, how can I just rip off, my opponent? How can I,
Right.
just go after them? No, that's not what it is. But we're just asking for our industry to continue to have a bad name and continue have legal issues when
Right.
when people aren't being professional about their job.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think actually number one on this list, how do you get an accepted offer, and how do you win, essentially, needs to be picking a solid real estate professional. You guys,
Okay.
that's number
Also,
one.
yeah, I'll submit that edit. Okay, what else do we have?
Yeah.
it,
I mean,
it is. It is.
yeah. 'Cause
Ah, right.
that's truly what gets you an accepted offer, and what holds deals together.
Yeah.
It's the quality of the professional that you're using.
Yeah.
So just it's great if you want to pick, your friend or family member to help you in a real estate transaction. That's fine. Just you might want to ask some qualifying questions and make sure that they do this more or less full time, and ask, well, what's your level of experience with this?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you learn a lot about their level of experience once you actually ask the question. Unfortunately, many people don't. They just go, "Hey, you're my friend, or you're my, my whomever, my family member. You'll give
Yeah.
me a discount. Can you represent me?"
Yeah.
And it's just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
Oh, another good chat, John. This was
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't mean to be negative about this stuff. Just
No, but we mean to be honest.
we mean to be honest. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, my friend. Well,
Okay.
that was yeah, great topics. Like I said, always a good chat. Curious what interest rates are going to be next Thursday when we see each other again. So
Yes.
hopefully not drastically different. So
I hope not.
yeah.
I hope not. Yeah.
All right, bud. Hey, have a great week, or enjoy the rest of yours, and look forward to next Thursday.
All right. You too, Jeremiah. Thank you.
All right, adios, man.
Adios.